Harry and Meghan lash out because they don't get their own way the whole time. She is a grifter. She wants fame for her own ego. To put this into perspective, at a time I did look after Katie Price. This this PR disaster is worse. There is no one, no PR on the globe, on planet Earth that could fix this.
How Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have become the worst example of PR and PR gone wrong in not just the history of the royal family, but the history of Hollywood, showbiz, entertainment, and Madison Avenue as well. Joining me now is Lauren the Insider. She is now a prominent royal YouTube sensation, but for nearly 2 decades was one of the top PR operatives operating behind the scenes in the British industry. Lauren, have you ever seen a PR disaster more catastrophic than Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, especially when you look at the Duke of Delusion, once so popular, Lauren, that YouGov even had him in the United Kingdom at least outpolling the late Queen Elizabeth II. He was just looking at the numbers more popular than his grandmother. Now, so despised, so hated, so toxic that brands and streamers and event companies don't even want to touch him. Is there anything comparable to this in PR history?
To put this into perspective, at a time I did look after Katie Price. This PR disaster is worse. There is no one, no PR on the globe, on planet Earth that could fix this. And I said, when Meredith Maines joined the team, everyone said, oh, are they suddenly going to get good PR? And I said, you will see favors pulled in here and there, and you will see them leaking to a few chosen media outlets. But they will never rewrite the narrative. And what we have seen is exactly what I said would happen over 6 months ago. And the reason they will never, ever be able to turn it around is because at the crux of it, they are greedy. They want so much money and they won't put the work in to do that. And when you are building a business, you're also building a relationship with the public. And they have not earned their stripes. They have not put that work in to demand that the public choose their brand or them over someone else. So, for example, we've had Martha Stewart work for decades. She has created an incredible brand that has taken years and years. And within that, she has probably lost money, earned money, and she's really created something amazing. With Meghan Markle, she left the royal family and they were just running, looking for those pound signs. And that is incredibly grifty. They also, I believe, pay a lot of people for PR and they have managers and aides. But I can tell you they are not taking any of this advice because the pedigree of the very people they attract, they are good. They are not getting scraping the barrel type PRs. So if you look at Emily Robinson, for example, who left after 3 months, Emily was a very, very good PR. We can't dislike her just because she took a job with Meghan and Harry, and she had previously overseen The Crown for Netflix. Now, The Crown is a global money spinner. A lot of Netflix's positioning and perception rested on The Crown. Emily was in charge of all of the cast and had a huge role on this. She's a very, very good PR. For someone like Emily Robinson to go into that job and not only leave after 3 months, which was never the plan because we went through the PR Week release and the Newsweek release and everything like that, things are really, really bad. And so with Meghan and Harry, what we see is every time there is something that doesn't fit their narrative, they bite back. And you can't do that in PR. So you either play the game or you don't. And by this, I mean, sadly, when you are relying on the mainstream media, you have to get on with it sometimes and you have to pick your battles. What you can't do is be suing some of the media and then demanding with the other hand that they do this, that they do that. And so Harry and Meghan sweat the small stuff all the time. And they like to use the mainstream media stage to go into battle with the mainstream media. And their PRs will be pulling their hairs out because this is so stressful. There is no strategy that can work with Harry and Meghan because there's a disconnect. So everything you're seeing is absolutely built on sand. We've gone through it all. We've torn it apart. I mean, it's been joyous, but it's all a facade. It's smoke and mirrors. And Meghan lies. That's a fact. And you can't lie in this day and age when people are trying to build PR strategies. The world is full of incredible online sleuths that can find out the truth like that and are better than any investigative journalist in the mainstream media.
So, Lauren, how do
So
you deal with a client who lies? Is there a moral line where, as a PR, you say, you're lying to me, I can't stay working for you? And could that explain why there have been so many PR departures? Or is the job of a PR to actually take your clients' lies and work with it? Because I mean, I know over the years I've had so many PRs lie to me, including Harry and Meghan's own courtiers when they were in the British royal family.
So I think being a PR is much like being a lawyer when you are representing someone that might be guilty, for example, and your job is to do the best you can do with what you've got. And so I would imagine that the PRs, because there has been such a high turnover, they're not being allowed to do their job, Dan. They can't be because you don't leave after 3 months. It just doesn't happen at all. And so they will be trying to build a strategy. But I believe Meghan goes direct to some of the journalists. If I look at the proof of how badly things are running, a PR just simply wouldn't operate like this. And so when you are faced with a client that lies to you, and I have done this many, many times, it's absolutely awful because you're having to deny things that you know are true. But as a PR, you have to get into the zone that you're going into battle every day. And your sole job is to protect that client. If you have to lie to protect that client, that is what you have to do. If you have to bend the truth, if you have to put false news out, that is what you do. And this is why I believe we have seen such a high turnover because working for Harry and Meghan, we know it's not a nice working environment. Because let's just use another example. Prince William and Princess Catherine, they have had the same nanny since Prince George was 8 months old. If you compare that to Harry and Meghan, look at the vast staff turnover. And it's always someone else's fault, or they're always so keen to spin the narrative. And again, this is why they will never, ever build businesses that will stand the test of time. They will never have a consistently positive and strong profile within the media because millions and millions of people around the world can go and fact check what they say. And we see that it's absolute lies that they're putting out. And then you see, for example, they're working with the Sun. So we know that Harry and Meghan are evidently working with the Sun, because when Meghan's film role, which, we're all praying is non-verbal or at the most a few lines, when that came out, the Sun ran the most ludicrous front page. It was a full front page about Meghan's back to acting, Hollywood career. They could have only got this coverage from Meghan's PR. So they are working with the same media that they're then hitting out with the next day. And that goes back to the very point when I said, you will see little spikes of good pieces here and there, but nothing that is ever going to stand the test of time. And that is why I don't think Harry and Meghan will come back here permanently, because it's not compatible with their egos. If you were in America, there are lots more media outlets. In the UK, it's a small pool of media. They've sued most of them, and Harry's in going to trial with another in the new year.
Yeah, but that's why I think The Sun, my former newspaper, are traitors for now going to try and work with the enemy. Harry and Meghan want them dead, want them destroyed, want them locked up. And I mean, you were just talking about the nanny, right? William, and the fact that William and Catherine have had this one nanny. And it got me thinking of a story that I wrote when I was still at The Sun as executive editor back in 2019. Look at this, Nanny Mc3. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry get through 3 nannies in 6 weeks. Now, Lauren, don't you think that's the type of exclusive that The Sun should be trying to break today rather than this PR bullshit? Because to me, that story was so indicative. Now, obviously, I'm a totally fair journalist. I, of course, spoke to Harry and Meghan's team within the royal family at that point. Remember, they were still courtiers. And I was happy to listen to the explanation. And the explanation was like, oh, one of these nannies was terrible. They fell asleep and, all of these horror stories, right? But it adds to an overall picture. If this were a one-off, then of course you could understand, okay, maybe you had a bad run. You had a bad run getting through 3 nannies in 6 weeks. But actually, we know it isn't about the nannies. We know it's about the way that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle behave. It's very indicative. So I think it's quite treacherous of The Sun to play that PR game with Harry and Meghan when they should be trying to reveal true stories. And it was also particularly treacherous because you'll remember with the example that you used, Lauren, and I haven't forgotten it, what it did was push Prince William, off the front pages on the most important day of the year for him, which was his Earthshot Prize in Brazil, where he had all of those celebrities lined up, the likes of Kylie Minogue and Shawn Mendes on the red carpet. And that was all to appeal to a newspaper like The Sun, a newspaper who he has built up a close relationship with via its editor, Victoria Newton. And that was a betrayal. And I think it's really terrible. I think given Harry and Meghan want to actually destroy anyone who reports the truth about them, not just in the mainstream media, but in the independent media as well, it's so wrong. If I got some type of lie sent to me by Harry and Meghan, I would not just regurgitate it. No way.
I mean, that Sun cover that they did with Meghan Markle, they knew if their sources were any good, they knew if it was one day of filming, then it's not a Hollywood career, back on track. And so this leads me to think, well, why are you running propaganda? Because people put their trust in content creators, news channels, newspapers. And so they're working in cahoots with Meghan Markle's team, because who else is going to, position a piece like that? And this was a one day at the very most filming. And that, it's gone now, and it will probably be dropped on the cutting room floor anyhow. And then we saw Meghan set up pap shots. And I rumbled this as well, because you cannot have a photographer on set filming or taking pictures without it being signed off at the very top. And those pap pictures were taken where the trailers are. So then you go from the trailers onto set. Every single person has to be insured to go on there, because film sets are incredibly dangerous sometimes. Everyone has to be accounted for. And so we've got Meghan pretending she doesn't know that they're there. And I truly think that Meghan was there with a friend who has a very, very good camera. And I would always have clients do this. They would go and buy a very expensive, high spec Canon, and they would take it with them to do their own pap shots. And then they would syndicate it. So I would then get the pictures and I would email them to Backgrid, and Backgrid would then put them out on the wire.
And that's a picture agency which very regularly runs pictures of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Yes, and I would go a step further and say, just have the Backgrid logo. Don't put a name of a photographer or anything. Let's keep it purposely vague. And you see Meghan setting up these pap shots, and I feel really strongly that there needs to be more transparency with how the mainstream media are working with Harry and Meghan, because this is the same mainstream media that have brought us the stories that Meghan has accused our royal family of being racist. All the things that Meghan and Harry have said, they have been delivered to us via the mainstream media. And so overnight, because the Sun seemed to have got a call from Meghan's PR team, we're now fed this absolute bullshit that is not true. She is not going back into acting. It's literally a few hours on a set, and that is it. So are the Sun going to refund everyone that bought the paper that day? Because that's utter bollocks that they've given people to read. And Harry and Meghan, this is why they have no strategy. They want to take the little bits that really massage their ego, and they only want to work with people that will put out their narrative. And Dan, it is about, picking your battles, isn't it, in the media? So occasionally you would have to meet a PR in the middle, I guess, and work with them. And sometimes as a PR, I would be like, fine, you can do that. The client would rather not, but, let's work together. But Harry and Meghan never do that. It's always on their terms, and their terms are distorted, and their terms are currently from another planet.
Well, indeed, because you talk about sweating the small stuff, and I want to just give you an example of how Meghan Markle is actually the most ungracious celebrity in the world. And this relates to another one of my former employers, GB News, whose royal coverage has really gone downhill. And it's in large part because of this guy who they've hired as the royal correspondent called Cameron Walker, who had never broken a royal story, didn't have any royal access, but had a close relationship with a guy called Omid Scobie. That very odd-looking bloke, Lauren, who's sort of like a little Michael Jackson. And this dude's sort of like the new version of Omid Scobie. And so he's like, I want to get close to Meghan and Harry. So he'd been writing a lot of Harry and Meghan bullshit, regurgitated directly from their PRs, which I think is terrible for GB News. I mean, GB News, which I was the launch presenter of, was obviously set up to be a pro-monarchy channel, a pro-royal channel, and the viewers despise everything that Harry and Meghan have done. But GB News got in the doo-doo after Carol Malone, one of their long-term commentators, went on air and suggested that Doria Ragland had gone to prison. Watch this.
Disadvantaged people. So where's her compassion for the father who actually brought her up, who paid for her private education while her mother was in jail, who took huge care of her, and she's not seen him in the latter years. More importantly, I mean, she's not just seen him, she's like totally snubbed him.
When was her mum in jail? When was her mum in jail?
Years ago. Do you want me to give you a precise date, time? Because I haven't got it.
I've never heard that forever.
Years ago. Anyway, she. But this old gentleman now could be dying. Yeah. He needs to see his daughter
So that was all around the time that Thomas Markle was in hospital, right? And within days, Carol Malone, and she wouldn't have been happy about this, clearly, and I reported at the time, I believe that there had been a defamation threat, because on a day that she's not usually on the programme Britain's Newsroom, she was dragged into the studio to deliver a hostage video apology.
In an episode of Britain's Newsroom on Thursday, December the 4th, 2025, I stated that Thomas Markle, the Duchess of Sussex's father, brought Meghan up while her mother, Doria Ragland, was in prison. I believe this to be the case based on what I now understand to be misinformation I had seen online. I was questioned about the validity of this claim during the broadcast, and I repeated this belief, which I now understand to be false. This was a genuine error. I accept what I have now been told on behalf of Miss Ragland, that she raised her daughter and that she has never been in prison or jail. I apologise sincerely to Miss Ragland and her family for any pain my comments may have caused, and I'm happy to set the record straight.
And can I just say on behalf of GB News, because I was on the programme that day, we all wish to apologise to Miss Ragland for the error, and we are happy to correct the record.
Now, you'd take that as a win, wouldn't you, Lauren? Like, if that was your client, you would take that as a major win. But Meghan Markle can't do that because she's such an ungracious cow. And she ran to People magazine immediately after that, you know, moaning about the apology and saying the broadcasters have a responsibility to inform, not inflame, but then used it to release a statement which I believe spread, quote, misinformation, Lauren, because this spokesperson, quote, to People magazine read, Ms. Ragland proudly raised her daughter and has never been in prison. GB News did not apologise voluntarily, but only to escape a defamation lawsuit, and it speaks volumes that GB News removed any trace of that apology within 24 hours of making it. So, okay, good for me in that they confirmed that there had been this defamation lawsuit threat, which is what I had reported. But it was actually the first lie. I mean, so number one, ungracious, right, and awful, like, sometimes, is there not just something to be said for being grateful that someone's apologized, that you've humiliated a whole news outlet? Like,
This
just
is the
take
thing
the win.
with them. They can't just shut up.
Yeah.
They've always got to have the last word. And look, I am no fan of GB News whatsoever, but they did apologise and they put it up. And nothing is ever good enough for Harry or Meghan. Interesting, though, they are obviously watching all of the media and they're happy to, within hours, get a lawyer, it would seem, on the case to then put in a legal threat to GB News. I don't believe they've ever done anything regarding the Sussex squad, when the Sussex squad were just putting so much pressure on Catherine, Princess of Wales, and when she was going through her cancer battle. And there are trolls that are disgraceful, that have never been told to stop because of Harry and Meghan. But yet, when the narrative doesn't suit them, oh, we'll put that fire out straight away. And this is what I mean when I say you see them use the mainstream media, but then sue the mainstream media,
Totally.
then lash out at
Well,
them.
People are like the most compliant outlet. But she also used that statement, I think, to try and create a new lie. That's what's so so frustrating about this. It's like, okay, you're angry at GB News for apparently lying. You're now creating a new lie because you say Ms. Ragland proudly raised her daughter. Well, actually, no, not for a long period of time. Thomas Markle raised Meghan solo. And it may not fit the narrative. It may not fit your woke narrative, Meghan, to go there. But that's the truth. And I just thought it's so despicable that there you are refusing to accept an apology from a mainstream media news outlet for, in your words, lying, while at the same time spreading another lie. It's shameless.
Yeah, and actually, at the very crux of why Harry and Meghan can't work with the mainstream media is because they can never give and take. It's always take, dominate, dictate. And so with this statement, this is crafted by them. It has to be, because a PR would never hit out at a mainstream media unless they had lost all control. So I used to, for example, have a client who a magazine would put on the cover every single week. And I used to use my comment back to them to slag that magazine off. They'd always cut the comment, so, it wouldn't ever run. But that was my very, very, very last port of call. They have not had this with, GB News. GB News just runs puff piece after puff piece about these two. And then the minute there's one thing they don't like, they start throwing their toys out of the pram. And let's look at, for example, how Catherine and William behave. They would never do this
No.
because they are not unprofessional and they are not angry people. Harry and Meghan lash out because they don't get their own way the whole time. And everything we've seen is consistent with those very early day leaks of Meghan Markle being a control freak, being someone that's not very nice to work with and not very nice to be around. Remember the 5 a.m. emails? And that took people by surprise. She was putting a lot of pressure on people. She is a grifter. She wants fame for her own ego. She wants to keep pushing herself forwards and only her. But it's not going to work, Dan. She is, the new year, it's not going to be a great year for them at all. They have run out of avenues.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being part of Outspoken throughout 2025. Now that we're into 2026, I'm so looking forward to your coverage on Lauren, the Insider, on YouTube, and of course, here on Outspoken. And the great news is we are back live on Monday with all of the royal news. You can find us over at Substack, www.outspoken.live.
Prince Harry is not expected to return to the African charity he founded in memory of his late mother, Princess Diana, according to sources familiar with the situation. The charity, Centerbale, was established in the southern African nation of Lesotho in 2006 to support young people living with HIV and AIDS. However, reports suggest the organisation has faced significant challenges since the Duke of Sussex stepped away from his role earlier this year. Sources claim that any possibility of Prince Harry resuming involvement with Centerbale has now been ruled out. Insiders have described the charity as being too damaged by recent controversy for a return to be realistic, with one source saying the situation is considered irreparably tarnished. Centerbale has reportedly struggled to maintain donations following public allegations made by former trustee Sophie Chandauka. Dr. Chandauka, a Zimbabwe-born lawyer, accused the charity of racism, bullying and misogyny. These claims emerged after she was appointed chair of the trustees in 2024, a decision that is understood to have caused serious disagreement within the board. It has been reported that several trustees opposed her appointment and later sought her resignation. An independent review was subsequently commissioned and later concluded that there was no evidence to support allegations of bullying or harassment within the organisation. Despite this finding, concerns were raised earlier this year that Centerbale might be forced to significantly reduce its programmes if new sources of funding could not be secured. The charity supports vulnerable children and young people affected by HIV and AIDS across parts of southern Africa. However, Centerbale has since insisted that its financial position remains secure. In a statement, the charity said that its audited accounts, prepared by independent auditors and filed with the Charity Commission at the end of September 2025, confirmed that it was financially stable and able to continue operating as planned. The organisation also explained that a global restructuring programme, including changes to its Botswana operations, had been under discussion for several years and approved by the board in stages from early 2024. Centerbale said its strategic plans for 2025 and 2026 remain unchanged. The charity declined to comment on individual employment matters. Meanwhile, sources close to Prince Harry suggest he has no intention of rejoining the organisation amid the ongoing fallout.